Scott Morrison has met with Donald Trump in New York. The former Prime Minister is in the US to launch a new book about faith in politics. North America correspondent Carrington Clark joins us from Washington now. Carrington, good morning to you. What do we know about this meeting between the two former leaders?
Yeah, so what we know is basically what Scott Morrison put on social media. He posted a photo of himself with former US President Donald Trump in front of a gilded door in Trump Tower, Donald Trump giving one of his trademark thumbs up. Scott Morrison, in that social media post, said that they discussed AUKUS, which received and this is a quote, warm reception. They also discussed China's role in the Indo-Pacific, and also the defence of Taiwan. Now, this has been a big news event because Donald Trump has never publicly endorsed the AUKUS agreement. Now, this is the agreement between Australia, the UK and the US, which, as they call it, Pillar 1, involves Australia receiving nuclear-powered submarines. Scott Morrison talks about this as one of his signature achievements as the Prime Minister of Australia. The deal itself was done when President Biden was president. But the question about whether or not President Trump also endorses AUKUS and therefore whether or not it will continue in his administration has been something that has preoccupied geopolitical watchers and obviously preoccupies the minds of many Australian politicians and members of the bureaucracy. Now, today I asked Mr. Morrison whether or not he had received a firm endorsement from Donald Trump regarding AUKUS. He said that he wouldn't elaborate really any more on what he had publicly posted, which is just that it received a warm reception, and wouldn't say whether or not Donald Trump had fully endorsed the AUKUS agreement. But he said that he does believe there's an element of, as he calls it, hyperventilating when it comes to the future of the AUKUS agreement. He says he does believe that there is strong bipartisan support here in the United States for this agreement. But this is a little bit of what we heard from the former Prime Minister earlier today.
Well, I'm not going to go into that because obviously a private conversation, but just to say it was a good opportunity to explain how AUKUS fitted into, the issues in the Indo-Pacific, the contribution Australia makes as part of that, and the credible deterrent that's necessary to maintain a free and open Indo-Pacific. So to see AUKUS not just as a set of procurements or something like that, but its broader strategic role, and there's a high level of sort of alignment and thinking around that.
Now, obviously, this is a concern for Australia if we're not getting a fully fledged endorsement from Donald Trump regarding the AUKUS agreement. Donald Trump has been much more vocal when it comes to some other American agreements, including NATO, suggesting that America would not come to the defence of countries that weren't contributing enough militarily. We need to know whether or not AUKUS is something that Donald Trump endorses, and hopefully we will get something from his campaign before the election itself, because obviously it is a major issue. Now, although Scott Morrison has managed to have a face-to-face meeting with the former president, someone who hasn't is the ambassador the Australian ambassador to the United States, Kevin Rudd, who was publicly disparaged by former President Donald Trump. I asked Scott Morrison whether or not he believed Kevin Rudd would be effective in a second administration from Donald Trump. He said that Kevin Rudd has admirable diplomatic skills, and he's sure that he would be able to work those skills in a second administration. And when I asked whether or not he himself would be interested in taking on that job, now that we do have this precedence of former Australian Prime Ministers taking on, he said he is not interested in that job.